have some tea and I'm just gonna knit and I'm gonna just chat a little bit and probably gonna rant a little bit because there is something very important I wanna talk about with all y'all. What I'm working on right now is, whoops, here we go. I'm gonna put my yarn here on the floor. So I like to put my yarn on the floor. It actually helps with tension. Really easy way, by the way, to help with tension is to get your yarn on the floor, or at least down away from you. I learned this from Patty Lyons and I was like, it can't possibly be that simple. No, it really is that simple. It's so funny, all the little things that you can do to help create good, even tension. And one of them is having your yarn on the floor. That's why we have things like yarn bowls and project bags so that we can have our yarn on the floor and not get dirty. Or, you know, we just throw it on the ground anyway because we should be washing our knits after we finish our projects. I am working on a original design that I've had in my head for a while for a razorback tunic, like long length. I want it to be long and I want it to be a razorback. This is very ambitious that I'm designing this. I've had this idea for a while, but I based the measurements off of just a swim cover-up I have. So we'll see if I can figure it out. I think I can. So let me rant for a second about washing and blocking swatches, because on one of my Facebook groups this week, somebody asked, you know, what do you do with your swatches when you're done? And there were a number of people who said, oh, I just, you know, I work up my swatch, I don't cut it, make sure I hit gauge, and then I unravel it so I can use it for the project. When people write patterns and they give you the gauge, that gauge is based on a washed and blocked swatch. It is not based on an unblocked swatch. And washing and blocking your swatch does affect your gauge. Now, blocking, that can mean a lot of things. A lot of times people think, oh, I never pin out my work, so therefore I don't block. If all you do is wash your item and even out your stitches and lay it flat to dry, that is a form of blocking. Because the point of blocking is to just help even out and relax the stitches so they take their final form. So anything that you do in terms of washing and drying performs some amount of blocking. And that process affects your gauge. Everything affects your gauge. Oops, I split the stitch. I split the yarn, but I fixed it, so it's okay. And look, if you've been satisfied with your results by not washing and blocking your gauge swatches, okay, fine. I'm not gonna argue with you. You're getting the results that you want and you're happy with your knitting. If, however, you're someone who finds that those knitted, fitted pieces you've been making are always just a little off, they're a little too big, they're a little too small, it might be as simple as you need to wash and block your knits. I want to do a whole video deep diving on how to really create an accurate gauge swatch because, you know, it's important. It's super important. Something else though, something very important I want to discuss. So on these Facebook groups that I'm on, and I'm on a few of them, and I really enjoy, by the way, I really enjoy the Facebook groups. Every once in a while though, somebody will come up with a question of, I have a friend and they want me to teach them how to knit, but they're left-handed. What do I do? And the answer is very simple. You just teach them how you knit. Knitting isn't like swinging a bat. If you've ever swung a baseball bat or a softball bat, yes, you bring both hands up on it, but really it's just one arm doing the swing. You can swing the bat with just one arm. So that's why you have left-handed batters and right-handed batter activity. But knitting is more like typing. When you type, on a keyboard, both hands are involved. You don't talk about left-handed typist and right-handed typist, right? Because it's a two-handed activity. Both hands are involved with the work. You have to train both hands to type. Well, when you knit, both hands are involved with the work. You have to train both hands. Now, not everybody treats it that way, but it's true. I mean, if you watch the way I knit, my left hand is moving stitches on and off of the right needle, while my right hand wraps the yarn. The work is pretty equally divided. There are other knitting methods, of course. There's what I would call more conventional English knitting, which looks more like this. You use your knife grip and you take your right hand and you stab them, choke them, pull out the guts, throw them over the cliff. But even this is still a two-handed activity. And of course, I'll switch the yarn over here and do a little continental knitting. In continental knitting, your right hand is inserting the needle into the stitch and picking or pulling the new stitch through, while your left hand tensions the yarn. Notice both hands are doing something. Just know though, if you're left-handed and you're learning how to knit, if it feels awkward and uncomfortable, it's not because you're left-handed trying to do a right-handed activity in a right-handed way. It's because you're learning a new activity with your hands, and that's awkward for everybody. And I can speak to this, and this isn't to brag. Well, okay, maybe it's a brag a little bit, but it's really not to brag. I say this because I've learned how to knit English, leather, continental, Portuguese. Every single time I learned a new way to knit or I changed the way that I knit, it was uncomfortable. It was awkward. I felt like fumbly fingers and I felt like my fingers were made out of sausages suddenly and I couldn't control them. And I'm a right-handed person, so I'm a right-handed person feeling this way while I knit. It's not because I'm right-handed. It's not because I'm left-handed. It's just because your hands are learning new muscle memory, and it just takes practice and persistence. There is a thing that you can do called knitting back backwards or purling back backwards, depending on what you're doing. Purling back backwards is actually easier. I'll show you. Notice, instead of working stitches off my left needle, I'm going to work them off the right needle. However, the yarn is still tensioned in my right hand, so I insert my left needle into the stitch on my right needle and then wrap the yarn and take it off. So this is knitting back backwards, and I'm working left to right. But if I'm really honest, this is always kind of awkward to do, not just because I don't work this way very often, but because the working yarn is fighting the motion of knitting off of my right needle. And again, this is one of those things that's a useful tool in the toolbox, because sometimes knitting back backwards is really handy if you're doing like just a tiny bit of knitting. Entrelac is a good example of this. Some short row techniques, or I shouldn't say techniques, some short row situations, being able to knit back backwards is kind of handy because you're able to save yourself having to turn the work. I don't like to do it for more than, I don't know, I would say more than 40 stitches. Knitting back backwards just is a little bit on the painful side to me. That's not to say there aren't a lot of knitters who are left-handed who learn to knit that way, and that's how they knit. And if you're one of them and you knit back backwards and you're really happy with what you're doing, awesome, that's great. You know, again, there's more than one way to knit for a reason. Every knitter does it a little bit differently, and you have to find what works best for you. Shoot. Oh, gotta fix that. Have a split stitch. Split stitch, stop, and fix. This last row that I did, I split so many I split the yarn so badly. All right, note to self, not knitting this project on camera again. Too splitty. The yarn is too splitty. By the way, here's a question for all y'all out there. Splitty yarns. Two schools of thoughts, right? One school is you use sharper needles to work with them. The other school of thought with dealing with splitty yarns is to use less sharp tips. What's your preference? I like sharper needle tips. It's just my preference. I feel like it's easier to work your way into the stitch. Yes, there's a chance that you'll split the stitch like I just did, but I feel like that happens even with less sharp needles as well. There we go. and maybe it's because, I think a lot of it has to do with how you knit, truthfully. But I always say that I like needles that are sharp enough that I could take out an artery. In fact, right now I am knitting with the Hiya Sharps needles, which are absolutely the sharpest needle points I've ever worked with. To me, the real key to working with splitty yarns is to be looking at my knitting while I knit. Does anyone else just enjoy watching knitting? Like, is that something you'd be interested in? Let me know in the comments below. Would you be interested in videos of just watching the knitting? Because, I don't know, I personally find that very relaxing. Knitting ASMR. It's great, it's great, it's great. Knitting. Feels so nice, so relaxing, so zen. I love the feel of my hands when I knit. Knitting ASMR.
Okay, so I reached the end of my row, and I reached the end of my tee, and I think I've reached the end of my knit tee. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like to find out what other tips, tricks, preferences I might have, if you want to see more knit tee videos, please subscribe and hit that notification bell in the corner, which will let you know whenever I upload a new video. I'm so excited. I have 10 subscribers. Yay! 10 subscribers is amazing. I just started this, and I have to say, my biggest fear when uploading my first video was that nobody would watch it, or the only people who would watch it would be like friends and family who are just being really kind, and friends and family have been so kind and generous with their comments, and big shout out to you for your love and support. I appreciate it so much, and I really appreciate the new people who've been showing up on my feed and have expressed that they're liking these videos, enjoying them. Just even getting a thumbs up is so encouraging. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm not going to cry, but it means a lot. Okay, maybe I'm going to cry a little bit. As always, happy knitting. Bye!
It felt uncomfortable when I first started knitting right-handed. So, anyway, so yeah, I just thought I would see how this goes. This is really scintillating watching me spend 5 minutes just trying to get my knitting going. How can I be so sure? Well, because when I first learned to knit English style, it felt incredibly, I can't talk this morning. Oh my God, I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to knit and talk to the camera at the same time. Had no idea. Every take today, I have remembered to start hitting record before I do the claps. Like, yay me! Ooh, high five, virtual high fives.